Exciting.
We have Denis on the right playing mono red, and Josh on the left playing BR Eclipse. You know Denis pretty well. Did you know that he was bringing a pretty interesting deck to the field today?
Well, he told me earlier that he asked to borrow a deck and was given a 75.
Yep.
So I think he doesn't play that much Highlander, so he probably didn't want something that was too technical. Something, and it definitely speaks to his preferences in other formats. It's definitely a sort of very on the battlefield deck where you're looking to just reduce your opponent's life total through attacks and a couple of burn spells.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's generally it does have a few lines in that kind of deck generally, particularly when it comes to interacting with your opponent's creatures. Do you burn your lightning bolt on their potential blocker? Does it go face? Does it go to a planeswalker? There are more lines than some people do give this kind of credit for, but it is still more straightforward than some of your like hardcore combo decks and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good if you haven't been in the game in a while to just bring an aggro deck, particularly. I think, and like mono red is like really clean, really neat. You also get the random Blood Moon package in the sideboard, or even the main board, depending on how you play it. We won't get access to deck lists just yet, but I'm sure they'll come throughout the day.
I think there's also a lot of value if you don't play a format a lot to just be on a list where you're presenting questions rather than answers.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to necessarily be as worried about what your opponent might do. You're kind of on a list where if your opponent plays some gigantic blocker or gains 20 life or whatever it is, that's life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think we are seeing more cards out of the mono red sideboard that are dealing 5 damage. I think there's a couple, but at least the Delve one as well. But I think like we're starting to get to the point where Flame Slash is almost good enough main board because the creature package in Highlander is pretty powerful and pretty strong.
Sure.
And so considering mono red has like a pretty hard time dealing with those extra large creatures, we'll see what Denis has to do with that. Josh is bringing Black-Red Eclipse, quite a popular deck actually, and I think he's playing a similar list to his brother as well, Lewis, who's also in this event, but I think they both appreciate this. It's called Black-Red Eclipse, but it could be like Black-Red Moon or just something where you're basically, you want to be like Mana Crypt, land, Magus of the Moon, Mana Crypt, land, Rabble Master or something like that, so it's like it's really important to get that early drop. Unfortunately, a little bit obscured by the glare on Josh's side with those hand cams, but we will prevail. And here's that early start that we were talking about. Look at this, Dark Ritual, Sheoldred.
That's
turn 1 Sheoldred.
Look, that's pretty good. I said it was pretty good to present questions rather than answers, and that's a good question.
Yeah.
We'll see if the mono red deck can assemble an answer to that.
And it's got to be a good one soon. And we were talking about for 5 power threats and how they can be really bad. And I mean, unfortunately for Denis, this is one of them. Sheoldred the Apocalypse, a 4/5 for 4 mana that drains when your opponent draws a card, and you gain life when you draw a card. So for 2 life each. So there's going to be like a 2-point life swing here immediately as soon as Denis untaps, and then again when Josh goes back to his turn. So we also have looking to be a rabbit battery as well.
I was informed by Denis earlier that his deck was indeed spicy because it plays rabbit battery, which all things aside is a lot of fun to say.
Yeah, and then we see I love rabbit battery a lot. We see it on the right hand side of the screen now. Thank you to Jaden. That's a 1 mana 1/1 with haste, but it's also an equipment. So for 1 red mana, you can give anyone you want haste. So looking at the life points totaled now, there has been some changes with the Sheoldred. So we would have gained 2 life from the draw step. So Josh will be on 22, and then Denis will go down to 4 from this attack, and then 2 from the drain, and then quite possibly another 2 as well from the second untapping.
Yeah, it looks like we might have them the wrong way around at the moment, but it's Yeah, it's definitely looking rough for Denis here.
Yeah.
This isn't a deck where you can throw out, like an Innocent Blood or a Swords to Plowshares or something on that Shieldred, which would be a pretty huge swing given the amount Josh had to invest to play it with that Ritual and that Lotus Petal. But without an answer to that Shieldred, it looks like Denis is happy to just go to game 2.
All right, quick games for our first ones. I mean, not many decks can beat an early Shieldred. I think that's just like probably just a bit too difficult. As you said before, like with good white cards, Swords to Plowshares, you can sort of cleanly answer any threat, but Denis doesn't have that advantage, of course, being only mono red.
Yeah, I mean, even in maybe some mid-range decks, you could get to like your 2-mana answers and try to stabilize from there. But on this sort of really aggressive aggro deck, just that like huge life point swing and then the number of cards you would need to invest, you're probably looking at like at least 2 of your burn spells just to get rid of the Shieldred. And by that point, you're just so far in the life race that it's pretty much over.
Have a fiddle with these hand cams, but we can continue to talk during the meantime. I like what you're saying about having to put in too much resources to kill that Shieldred, but it's going to be pretty difficult for Denis in the second game, depending on what happens. Doing lots of running around. That hopefully that made it a little bit easier. All right, sweet. Yeah, a little bit obstructed by glare, but we do what we can. I brought a camera stand with a umbrella attached to it to save us from the pain of glare. But besides that, we can only do as much as we can do. But we can get a good look at the decks at the moment. Denis is sort of figuring out what he wants to side out. Josh looking to be what he wants to side in. I can see Obnixilis, Chalice. There's a few cards in there. I think Red Cap Melee as well. So there's a little bits of everything. I'm not sure about the Obnixilis. I guess we'll see what Josh's plan is. Obnixilis being sort of more of a grindy card. You can sacrifice a creature as it enters the battlefield to create a copy of Obnixilis. So it's kind of I think it has life gain attached to it. So
yeah, he might just be on board to play threats that have any kind of incidental life gain here and there, just to try to keep him out of range of those sort of final burn spells to the face. That incidental life gain of 4 or 5 points here and there can really add up to a lot in this kind of matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, time has passed, I think, since Kitchen Finks was a good sideboard card, but you can imagine like against mono red, just like 2 life here and then maybe it dies and you get another 2 life, like that can actually just change the clock considerably. Like that's 1 or 2 burn spells.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially, you go to Kitchen Finks as an example, which has probably fallen off a little bit, but in this like exact kind of matchup, it gains the 2 life and then it blocks and trades with a threat. And then it gains 2 life again and then it maybe blocks and trades with another threat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is actually just fantastic.
yeah, absolutely.
I guess
the block is also kind of gaining you life as well, because you're not taking damage.
There might not be too many people who are kind of worried enough about mono red to play like exactly Kitchen Finks, but it would be a great card in this matchup.
Yeah, I think at least in Canberra we have a couple of we have one dedicated red player and a couple sort of who bring it every now and then, but it's like it's one of those things where in your local meta you plan for it because life gain is just something that we all have to play now because one of our locals is playing mono red, but like in the national meta you might like not consider it or not have it in your mind or actually just like undervalue it or just like take it for granted or not be able to appreciate actually how much damage it can pour on in a single turn.
Yeah, I mean this is definitely a pretty large event with quite a few sort of interstate turnouts and a lot of people who aren't necessarily sort of the hardcore Canberra regulars also showing up. So this is definitely something where you might want to tune some of your deck choices, especially in the sideboard, to what you might expect from more of a more national event than just sort of your casual monthly Highlander kind of thing.
It's pretty funny. You might just play 3 or 4 rounds where you've never played against these decks before because it's just like how the cards fall. From in the chats, 63 players
It's a huge
attending today.
turnout.
Huge turnout. So
really good.
we had 70 last time, so really comparable, of course. Only a couple difference, but we were getting pretty scared. Pat was right on the ball when we were planning it. He said a week out, there's probably about half the pre-sign-ups is like a good indicator. Half the player turnout will be sign up in the first week or so. So when you say 30 people have pre-signed up, it doesn't sound very exciting, but Pat was on the money. He said it probably will double and we'll get about 60. So 63 players today, an incredible event, 6 rounds. And we're back in the game of round 2 of Mono Red versus BR Eclipse.
Yeah, and it looks like Denis has opened up with a land into Goblin Guide, reveal the Lightning Bolt, which is then traded with the Goblin Guide, which is a pretty great start for Denis. I mean, obviously you don't want to lose your Goblin Guide, but it didn't draw Josh any more cards. Yeah. And I mean, the Lightning Bolt was going to go somewhere. So, yeah. I mean, you've gotten the 2 damage in.
Yeah.
And your opponent hasn't played a turn 1 Shieldred, so...
Yeah, that's right. Whenever your opponent doesn't play a turn 1 Shieldred, you're pretty happy. So I'll be interested to see what comes out of Josh next turn. This is Felden of the Cane, famous owner of Felden's Cane. 2 mana, 2/2. When it is dealt, it has haste. Whenever it's dealt damage, you exile that many cards off the top of your library, and you can cast them this turn. So like a kind of and something that we've seen recently with red decks is actually just a resurgence of random card advantage, because it was never something that could be afforded. Was that pure damage meant that you couldn't cast any spells or you couldn't draw any cards, but with all these reckless impulses and Felden as well, it's like the story changes a little bit. We're seeing an opening hand, really slow start for Josh. Maybe he just had a bunch of stuff, a good curve and good cards in his hand, maybe some sideboard cards, but he's had a look. A little bit too quick for us, but I saw a Zergo Bellstriker and a Flame Tongue Kavu and some bits and some bobs, but yeah, obviously streaming at the beautiful 720p, one of the best amounts you can stream at. So we're missing out on a little bit of information, but for Josh, we got it all. Here comes a Scalding Tarn fetch for either turn 3 play, well, definitely for a turn 3 play, but we'll see if Lutru goes in this hand this game. Lutru's kind of a funny one as well, because it's not really that important to mono red, but whatever, it's free card advantage. Might recast a Fire Blast or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the capacity to play it in your deck list, you sort of may as well, with the companion requirement on Lutru specifically, not actually having text.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see the old Kithkin card of your Figure of Destiny and Zergo Bellstriker entering the battlefield on Denis's side. Just 2 1-drops off their 2 mountains. It doesn't get much better than that. Denis being on a 19 life points as well because of that cracked fetch recently. And here's the Figure of Destiny up on the screen. Thank you, Jaden.
Yeah, and Figure's definitely had a place in this kind of deck ever since it's been printed, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just sort of has... I mean, it kind of starts out as a 2/2 fairly cheaply, but it does kind of help protect you against like really, really bad flood and things like that, which can be kind of rough in this sort of deck. I mean, Denis is sitting here at 3 lands, which is probably all he really wants to see the whole game.
Yeah,
and the deck is probably generally happy to operate on 2.
And we're going to get in here. Speaking of two creatures attacking with the Figure, I presume still a 1/1, and Zergo a 2/1.
Yeah, I mean, you usually wait until your opponent has decided to declare no blocks before you activate the Figure, just in case they have random bits of interaction where it might matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And choosing to sort of play his cards close to his chest as well. We're going to see. Well, this is interesting. Here comes the Bowmaster with the Figure of Destiny trigger on the stack. Lewis is actually going to respond to the first trigger by flashing in this Orcish Bowmaster and dealing 1 damage to try and kill the figure. But Denis has responded with another activation of that first ability. Figure of Destiny becomes a 2/2. So it will be protected, but blocks is still about to happen, I'm sure.
Well, I would imagine that Josh has already opted into not blocking.
Yeah,
which
sure.
when the figure was activated.
Okay.
So I mean, he would potentially have the opportunity here if Denis had sort of main phase that figure to block and trade if he wanted to, if he doesn't think the figure the Orcish Bowmaster necessarily represents a large amount in this matchup. I mean, you did mention that the mono red decks have a little bit more kind of card engine than they used to, but it doesn't really take the form of card draw very often. It's usually sort of that exile, you can play this turn style effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the chat, Stream Team 3000, greetings from Germany. Wonderful, welcome, Canadian Highlander player. So a couple of key differences, I think, between Australian Highlander and Canadian Highlander is the structure of the deck. It's, of course, 60 cards with a 15-card sideboard. Same as Canadian Highlander, you have a points list, as the name of 7-Point Highlander would suggest. It's 7 points that you have to choose from, whereas I think Canadian Highlander is 10, something like that.
I'm not exactly sure. And the points list is a little bit different to kind of reflect that. I think that, I can't remember exactly which one it is, but one of the formats definitely puts a lot more emphasis on pointing tutors.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just sort of how the metas evolve with the differences in sideboarding and in deck size.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I prefer the Australian Highlander because I don't want to shuffle 100 cards. And that's really the deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
But I think the formats are close enough in spirit that I can appreciate both, even if I don't want to physically shuffle 100 cards.
Yeah. That's why it's fun to have like a friend who just wants to shuffle decks all day and can walk around with you and shuffle your shuffle your deck instead of playing. Flametongue Kavu on Denis's side, and also we saw the Direfleet Daredevil come down on Josh's side.
I believe that there was actually nothing in Denis's graveyard, and that Josh is just opting for it as a 2/1 first strike blocker, which is fairly good into Denis's board, even if you don't get the really good value of getting a lightning bolt out of your opponent's graveyard and being able to kill one of their creatures and still have the blocker.
Yeah, 100%. The first strike is really relevant as well. Apologies, Flametongue Yearling. Thank you so much for that, and we see it on the screen there as well. So multi-kicker extraordinaire, no longer a Flametongue Kavu, but just a wee little baby. We saw the sort of future shifted, I suppose you could say, cards. Seasoned Pyromancer in the same set, whereas the young Pyromancer has all grown up. I think this is the opposite, where I'm going to dare say that Yearling is a baby.
It might even be as young as 1 year old.
Oh, a Yearling.
Yeah.
I see.
I'm not sure entirely about the flavor of putting multi-kicker on a baby. That's a little bit weird. But
what can you do? You have to fill out your requirement to have at least 5 cards that say multi-kicker on it.
That's
every year,
true.
so.
I mean, I think it's been demonstrated that every mechanic, to some extent, is kicker.
Yeah, I have. It's my favorite theories, along with every statistic is just 50-50.
Sure. Either it happens or it doesn't,
Yeah, exactly. So yes, all cards have kicker. One of my more favorite conspiracy theories. And Josh is starting to build up a pretty impressive board state. Denis only 1 card in hand, but Josh also maybe only 1 or 2 cards in hand himself, but Blood Tithe Harvester entering the battlefield, making a blood token, perhaps even for Josh. I'm going to make him a little token. Give me a second. I want to show these off because I'm so impressed with them. We bought these tokens, and they're so good for footage because you can just write blood on it in a texter.
Actually, I got you one better.
An actual blood? No, keep this because then you have the memory. It's yours. Yeah, sweet.
Violet blood.
Amazing. Incredible.
And the text of like what it does.
Perfect. Hero.
I'll refer to this IRL with my...
Perfect. Team. So lovely. So we got, I had to pull them off as fast as I could to get it started as fast as I could, but we have these cute little tokens that you can't really see on the screen after all that, but cute little CBR MTG token that we're filling out right now with blood. That is a token that's made of the completely unlookable.
Yeah, it's definitely found the worst spot in the play space to sit in, but that's all right.
Okay. We're gonna know what it is and get a close up soon, so we can have a beautiful look probably after the game is done. But yeah, for now, we're gonna get back to the games, I suppose. Blood in a token close to the eye, but not quite there. Dylan shuffling up after a fetch land puts him. He's still at a pretty healthy 18, but I think in regards to cards in hand / things happening on the battlefield, Josh is pretty ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can see that Denis has kind of definitely hit a few more lands than he would have liked to this game, and sort of the threats that he has, other than maybe the Figure of Destiny, just don't really pair up well into what Josh is presenting as a board of blockers. And Josh has a fairly healthy life total, sitting on 12. Isn't too worried about lightning bolts being ripped off the top.
Yeah.
You know, Denis would have to hit 4 in a row without Josh hitting any sort of interaction or incidental life gain for that to really be a threat.
Yeah, and it's like, see in the chat, did we change the actual blood token to an unseeable white card? Yeah, hopefully, actually maybe we can get our tech friend to put the regular blood back just so we can see it. Unfortunate of the token situation, but you know, for the players, it'll be a memory to last a lifetime. But yes, currently unseeable. Thank you very much. So commentary team all over it. So now we can see what the blood looks like. But Josh, he gets to keep that forever. All right. Lovely. So here we go. Fable of the Mirror Breaker on Josh's side. Again, another thing, like this is an interesting comparison for decks because they're not too dissimilar from each other. You know, they're trying to play to the board. They've got a lot of burn. They've got a lot of disruption. Not very many counter spells, you know, obviously for either side. Maybe in the sideboard, but we see sort of where Josh's deck is differing to Denis's, where Denis is trying to play these 1-mana creatures that can't really get through, and Josh is sort of playing a little bit more big things and playing a little bit bigger. So it's working out for him. I think another thing that's working out a little bit is the difference in lands as well. We have, if you just change that window, Jaden, should be another window available to you. No, never mind. It's all right, all good.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that Josh is operating pretty happily on just 3 lands, whereas it looks like Denis is up to his 6th, which is kind of a lot. I mean, I think Josh's list might be a little bit happier on 4, but with the threats that he's drawn, 3 is pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, he has so many spare bodies to block pretty much anything that Denis can present, and he's probably getting pretty close to a position where he feels like he's on the front foot and is ready to start cracking in the swings himself.
Yeah, Josh has been really, really showing a lot of discipline by not attacking. He's checking his board. He's like, I guess Denis is never going to attack into my stuff, so I have good blocks. I may as well just stay behind as best I can.
I believe at some point in its activation, Figure of Destiny does gain flying.
Oh, okay.
And possibly lifelink as well, which would be a fairly problematic thing for Josh if you can't find an answer to it, because without, you know, he's not exactly playing a lot of flying or reach blockers. So if Figure does kind of reach that point, which it looks like it may have with Denis putting it sideways, I'm not exactly sure.
That's all right. Well, I mean, he's definitely putting it sideways.
At the very least, he might be representing more activations on the card.
Yeah, I think it's okay to leave the cards for now. We'll see how we go, but might be worth changing. Yeah, that's all right. We're working live here, folks. We're working live. Here's some more beautiful, unseeable tokens, but At least this one's got a little bit of red on it. Josh is going to provide us with a beautiful drawing here. Yeah, unfortunately, we set up the tokens without necessarily considering the glare factor versus the 720p factor. But that's all right. Our crew working mercilessly to try and make some tokens here, conscripting our players to do the same, to do some work for us. We see in the chat, why is the BR deck called Eclipse? And I think Brad was right on the money. There's a red-white moon deck called Moonshine, which is, and we explained this once in our video, I remember one of our videos, but there's a deck called Blue Moon, which is blue and red, and then there was a deck that was sort of referencing that and called themselves Moonshine because the white was giving it a bit of shine. And then after that, Eclipse was supposed to be, well, it's moonshine, but at nighttime. And then no one bothered to say that moonshine at nighttime is just nighttime.
Sure.
Or the moon. But
I was going to go with the much simpler answer that people don't know how to spell syzygy, which is what they would call it instead of Eclipse.
That's what I would call it, definitely.
Yeah, it's a really fun word. It's actually not that hard to spell either because it's just every vowel is a Y, and you just put the consonants where you think they go. So it's actually pretty straightforward.
I'm liking it so far. We see an annex of the Forge and a couple of tokens, possibly even satyrs.
Yeah, I would imagine those are satyrs made by Annex.
Yeah, sweet. We just lost footage. Jaden, I might want to push in the screen a little bit so we can see again. That cord is so fiddly. Yeah, I just got to plug in that HDMI, baby. For anyone who was wanting to decide whether or not mini HDMI was good, it's not good. But that's all right. We're going to push through. We're kind of back. Go on again. All right. That's all right. We can see perfectly fine. And I'm going to have a little fiddle. Hey, nah, you're good, mate. A little bit of a technical issue on the commentary side. Beautiful satyrs. They're going to miss out on them, but
I've just had to plug through.
Yeah, it should be fine. Let me check again. All right, and it is bedlam out there, so I'm glad I'm back in the commentary room. This is still off. Okay, we're just going to fix a slight technical issue. And I'm going to just pull out the cord again and try again. This is sometimes not all the way in. That looked good. Check to see. 16 plays 11. All right, should be back now.
Oh, you're duplicating.
Yeah. But it's worth it. Yeah, all good. Sweet. Okay. New tech happening over here. We're live, baby. We're live. Our setup is just about to be good. We're adjusting live totals and stuff as well. We do see satyrs on Dylan's side, Dylan's side, on Denis's side. I've got Dylan on the brain. Dylan is taking our Yori on Pile to the event today, and we're excited to get them on footage a little bit later. All right, let me check this situation. Yeah, it's still there. It's just this bloody mini HDs. The mini HD company will be hearing from my lawyers. Thank you, bloody Sam. What about the desktop? You can do it. All right. Blow into the thing, which is customary. All right. Squeeze.
looks like we have managed to sort out our HDMI issues. And we now have footage back in the commentary booth.
All right, sorry everyone. That's the benefit of being live, is that sometimes things break. But we look like we're back now. Whew, thank goodness. Our only first mistake of the day. The dream, but we are back now and we see, let's get back to the game. So we'll readjust the life totals. So we're back in action, but otherwise lots of damage coming in here. Annex of the Forge, Mishra's factory as well, and those Satirs and Zergo.
Yeah, it does seem like with that draw of the Annex and then the figure activation kind of cracking in, trading and making a few Satirs, it does seem like Denis has kind of recovered from what looked like a pretty bad situation.
Yeah,
that
was a huge comeback. In the time that we're faffing around, he seems to have been turning it around.
He now seems to be quite comfortable turning creatures sideways again. And I mean, even if a lot of these creatures are going to trade, potentially trade down, then he's still putting that pressure on Josh's life total. And Josh hasn't necessarily found any game-ending threats of his own or any threats with that sort of incidental life gain.
Yeah, and we do see the rabbit battery on the Annex, a brief glimpse of it while it was done, but reconfigured onto the Annex, which is nice. I actually like rabbit battery a lot because it's just like 1 mana, give whatever's next haste, but it also has that +1/+1 on it as well. So
yeah, I mean,
little attacker.
A lot of creatures in the deck are going to incidentally have haste, but I mean, giving haste to something like a Goblin Rabblemaster is pretty huge, and just the fact that you can move that extra point of power around or have it be a creature, that is pretty potent for a deck like this. It's sort of, it's not necessarily the most big, flashy and impactful thing you'll see, but it's something that is going to present a surprising and deceptive amount of value throughout an extended game like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can see with that big swing, he's put Josh all the way down to 4, which is
back up to 0-6 if you want the life totals to line up a little bit better, but back up to 6 from Sheoldred. Gaining a little bit of life, which is nice. We're going to sacrifice this blood token finally, which seems like it came very early in the game, but now it's giving a little bit of card filtering for us. And Josh is going to discard a card and draw a card, and he's in a bit of a pickle right now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Denis is quite representing lethal, but he's definitely in a position where, we're not in that sort of position anymore where a few burn spells off the top are only going to make a few cracks in Josh's life total. The 3 points is a pretty real threat now.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the Sheoldred's on the battlefield, though, Josh is going to have that beefy blocker and also that incidental life gain from the card draw.
Definitely. I mean, two life a turn is absolutely huge.
Yeah, huge, absolutely. So. The Sheoldred back again, menace of the format. Graveyard Order technically does matter, but I think the shorthand is if neither of you have Graveyard Matters cards, then it won't. But it does technically matter because cards like Shallow Grave, Phyrexian Furnace, I think is one of them. Maybe not Furnace, but...
I think Furnace is about as deep as anyone is willing to go.
Yeah.
I think if you're really, really deep into the source, perhaps Bosium Strip.
Okay. I like Bosium Strip. One of my favorite strips, and definitely my favorite thing that Bosium has ever done. So
yes, absolutely.
Two great things.
But yeah, I think Shallow Grave is the only Orders Matters card I've actually ever seen legitimately played.
Yeah, great card. Great card. We see the Graveyard Trespasser eating something from the graveyard. This is a nice one. Ward, I think it's Ward pay 3 life, so it's also just like hard to get rid of, and then it can flip into an even larger creature. So, oh boy, Josh has got this incidental life gain down pat. 0-3 plays 1-3. And yeah, we're about to go into this Dylan's next turn.
This is still Denis.
Still Denis.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. Just lost the footage again. Yeah, it's back again. Yeah, sorry about that. Fiddly. We're going to get a big strip of tape and put it over the thing, but we'll be fine. All right, we'll see what Denis is up to now. Denis with the Annex of the Forge, and mostly just Satyr tokens. This Annex has been really impressive, actually. I believe whenever cast a red spell, I suppose, because of what we've seen so far.
I believe it's when your other creatures die, you get to make Satyr tokens.
Okay.
And he is
Many has died.
also larger based on your devotion to red.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which
Funny it doesn't quite power itself up because the tokens don't give devotion, but still a beefy.
That would probably be an interaction that the designers intentionally avoided. Would be my suspicion.
Doesn't make itself infinitely bigger. Unreal.
Yeah,
Unreal.
that's just rough.
Incredibly rough. We are in nighttime mode at the moment. Daytime, nighttime also being a fun update on the old werewolf rules. Werewolf was just, you would flip it if someone cast 2 spells, and then the upkeep it would flip, and then it would flip back if someone cast 0 spells. Day-night is the same, except it keeps going after all of the creatures are long gone. So you could technically be nighttime and then cast a werewolf, and it would come in on the backside, which is kind of neat, but pain in the neck for everyone who isn't playing online.
Sure. I mean, you do have those day-night tokens that can help you to track it, and for some of those cards that do transform, coming in immediately, like transformed like that, is pretty potent.
Yeah, for sure. All right, going into Dylan's turn again. I mean, and Josh was down to what we saw him at 4, or we saw him at 6, and now he's back at 11. This Sheoldred's really being a pain in the neck for Denis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without a way to remove it, it seems like trying to go sort of around it or over the top of it is pretty difficult. I mean, he has assembled a pretty decent board state of satyrs, but I mean, they're just going to kind of get eaten by the Sheoldred, which isn't exactly fantastic.
Yeah.
We see the sort of the classic 7-point Highlander of the turn 10 mocks, which is right when you want it.
Exactly when you want it. Yeah, very powerful in the early game. Of course, the 0 mana artifact that has attracted 3 points, and we see nearly all of Denis's 7 points right in front of us, with Lutri at 2 as companion and Mox at 3 as in the deck. You can't have it as a companion, but the Robber of the Rich being cast off that Mox, probably just to prove how good Mox is, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess Denis isn't seeing necessarily any value to holding the Mox, might not be playing around with too many prowess cards, and I guess really valued transforming it back to the daytime, as we can see off that double spell,
yeah, that's
rather than holding that Mox for any potential like rummage effects or prowess triggers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably like playing off what you could see in the future, Denis has opted not to do that by just playing to what's on the board, and there seems to be a value in turning it back to daytime, as seemingly the both players are discussing now in great detail. All right, so we have a copy here, so I think we're just deciding how the copy looks, but presumably the copy would, I think we're deciding whether or not the copy would flip over. We might have to get a judge for that one if it ever happens, but from memory, if a token tries to flip, it just doesn't instead.
That was how the interaction worked the last time I looked into it.
Okay.
That was several years ago, so it certainly could have changed since then.
Well, we will see. Token can't flip. Thank you, Stream Team 3000. Part of our stream team right now, helping us with judge calls. We're going to make another copy, I think. So that was a copy in the end step for Josh, and then another copy in the, I guess, main phase or during Josh's turn. So now he has 2 hasty copies of Graveyard Trespasser, and he's going to gain 3 life. He's going to exile a couple of cards. The big Graveyard Trespasser is getting in as well, though. I mean, they could all get chump blocked by the Satyrs, which is kind of sad, but otherwise, we'll see how Denis responds here.
Yeah, I mean, Fable of the Mirror Breaker definitely displaying its status as one of the cards of all time
Yeah,
that
it's
Wizards of the
definitely a card
Coast
of all
decided to print. Whether or not that was a great idea, I'm sure Magic players have pretty divisive opinions over, but it
Yeah.
certainly made its way into just about every format.
Oh yeah, and Highlander being no exception here. Fable the Mirror Breaker, both making you a token, drawing and discarding, and then also doing what we're seeing now. This is like highest upside play. You're just making token copies, and you weren't going to get there until what 3 turns later before you can untap with the Kiki Jiki. But I mean, Dylan's paying the price here. He's going to do some blocks. He's figuring out how he wants it to look, but. Yeah, I think just getting rid of. I think he's on the right track there. Just getting rid of the main graveyard trespasser, and doing the best he can to sort of stem that bleeding in the future. Because now that there's only a Sheoldred and the Kiki Jiki doesn't actually even have any good targets because it can only target non-legendary.
For sure. I mean, it does make a lot of Josh's future draws potentially more threatening. And I mean, with that Sheoldred still kind of on the battlefield doing her dirty work, I mean, I think it's gained Josh 8 or 10 life at this point.
Unreal amount of life.
Possibly more. I'm not sure if a little bit more incidental damage is cracked through from Denis.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's obviously a pretty huge swing that sort of put Josh well and truly out of the range of a few cheeky burn spells, and it's definitely making Denis have to put in a lot of work with the creatures that he's been able to assemble in order to lower Josh's life total down to a point where it's actually in any kind of danger.
Yeah, and we see here, this is the Obnixilis that we were talking about. It has casualty as it enters the battlefield and can make a token copy of itself if you sacrifice a creature. So really nice play from Josh by getting in with that, getting in with those copies, and then sacrificing the copy to Obnixilis in your second main phase so that you can make a 2 loyalty or 3 loyalty Obnixilis. And then now he has 2 Planeswalkers. They gain him life as well. So he's got all these random incidental life gain. And Dylan's on 3 life. It's like pretty bad. And
Yeah,
that's it.
he's packed it in. It seems as though, I mean, we didn't quite see the turn 1 Sheoldred, but it seemed like even at a notionally fair point in the game, Sheoldred is still a very powerful Magic card.
Oh yeah, hard to get rid of, hard to attack through.
She had a little bit more backup this time, but was a pretty huge aspect of swinging that game into Josh's favor and letting him take that match down 2-0.
Yeah, and that was a quick one as well. We still have plenty of time on the timer, so I might see if we can harangue someone later into a deck tech, or just go around and start talking to people. But yeah, very unfortunate for Denis. His first round is a loss, but I tell you what, BR Eclipse, a deck to look out for both today and in Highlander in general, because I mean, we saw its power there, and we're going to continue to see its power, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, any deck that is investing cards or points into unfair starts and your rituals and your mana grips, sometimes you just don't have the answers to beat whatever nonsense they throw at you turn 1. And they kind of just win a game for free, and there's nothing you can do. You know, you didn't have the force or the 1 mana answer in your hand. You just lose the game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that sometimes the game feels like Vintage Cube, where you either need to be doing really powerful things or stopping really powerful things, because sometimes you just get fast mana Sheoldreded, and it can be pretty bad. We see in the chat, Stream Team, what kind of tournament is this? Where? How many players? Thank you for asking. We are at CanBrawl 2, played in the glorious nation's capital of Canberra on Ngunnawal land. We are playing a 63-person tournament, quite a large one after the success of CanBrawl 1. Yeah, there's a bunch of people here. This is going to be 6 rounds, top 8, dual lands on the prize floor, ready to be taken by some of these players. So yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I mean, dual lands have always been a pretty iconic part of Highlander, obviously helping out with that sort of singleton mana base. So it is nice to see that even with their inexorable rise in price, we can still get events with enough players to justify them being the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think long gone are the days of winner mocks tournaments because mocks were pretty accessible and pretty cheap, and then eventually prizes went up and we changed it to winner duel. But even a winner duel is incredible. It's nearly $1,000 on the line. Yes. So we're at the end of round one. For the YouTube people, we'll see you later. We're going to be uploading these to youtube.com/CBR MTG. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.